Hello everyone. Wish you all a very happy Diwali and welcome to this week's episode of the Author Collaborative. As always, I'll be talking to an author whose book I have read and enjoyed recently. Today's guest is poet Jiel Narvekar, and I have read her poetry book Melancholy Maybe, and she will be joining me as a guest, and we will be talking about her book, which is Melancholy Maybe, and my book Heartstrings and Harmonies. It's going to be a really interesting session because after a long time, I have a poet with me on the show, and we are going to discuss poetry and how we go about writing poetry, and of course, fiction too, because she will be asking me questions about heartstrings and harmonies. And it's going to be a really fun session to stay connected. Hi, the Saga Shelf. Thank you for joining. I'm waiting for my guest to join so we can start the episode. My guest today is Jiel Narvekar, and we are going to talk about her book, Melancholy Maybe. Okay, she's not here, but let me invite her so we can start. Hi, Mayur. Thank you for joining. Happy Diwali. Okay, my guest isn't here yet, so I'm just going to. Try again. Hi, Jiel, if you are there in the audience, I've sent you another invitation. See if you can accept that. Hey, hi, Jiel. Thank
Hi,
you.
Nali. Yes,
Welcome to the show.
thank you. Happy to be here.
Happy Diwali to you.
Happy Diwali to you too. Looking lovely in all the festive attire.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I am very happy to have you here because we have been doing this back and forth for a while and it got delayed. Like it's been at least a couple of months now that we have been trying to do this.
So,
So I'm very happy.
yeah, same here. I'm really happy it's finally happening.
Exactly, yeah. We have the Saga Shelf here wishing us happy Diwali. Happy Diwali to you.
Yes,
Okay.
happy Diwali. Yeah,
So, first of all, before we start the episode, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
yeah, sure. So once again, thanks for having me here, Manali. It's great to be on platforms that recognize the author in you, and as a person, I just say that I'm basically from Mumbai, and I'm an HR professional, and have been a writer ever since I can remember. It's just that it's letting the world know very recently that I also write. And yeah, as I said, I'm from Mumbai, and writing has been a passion ever since my college days. But I was just waiting for that right time because it was not something that you take as a career.
Hmm.
Generally you
Right.
with writing, yeah, as a hobby. And I kept writing a lot of things over the years, but it's just maybe with family that I've been able to share it, or it's just there on the laptop, or maybe in some
Yeah.
book, and that's about it. But last year I decided to take the leap and to say, okay, let's see what comes of it, because if not now, then when? And that's how the book Melancholy maybe came into being. And yeah, and after that, I've been really taking a lot of efforts to hone the craft, writing regularly, putting that habit, to use also, kind of sending out my stories and poetry to various magazines to just see how things go from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Afsana is here. She's saying hi, Manali. Hi, Afsana. Thank you for joining and happy Diwali. So, I also want to talk about my experience of reading your book. So, firstly, yes, of course, I am a poet myself and I enjoy reading poetry just as much. Just as much as enjoy writing it, I enjoy consuming poetry also. And the one thing that I really liked about your book is that it talks about small things, small everyday things it takes into account. And, the things that we generally take for granted, you have appreciated those in beautiful words in your poetry, and I really like that. And there's also it's not only a reminder to appreciate and observe these things, but it also leaves us motivated and, leaves lingering thoughts behind. For a long, long time, you keep thinking about the words that you have read. So that's what I really liked about your poetry. And based on that, I want to read out one particular poem which I really liked. And I think, if I'm not wrong in assuming, I think that's the one that's been highlighted the most. While I was reading the book, I noticed that this particular poem was highlighted the most. So that only goes to show that many people have enjoyed reading this particular poem. So this one is titled "The Last Goodbye." Okay, and before we do that, I just want to show everyone the book cover. Do you also have the book cover with you, maybe?
I do.
Yes. So let's show everyone the
Yeah.
cover. Just a second. I'm just opening it. So this is the cover. This is the cover of the book, and it's lovely. I mean, it tells us what to expect from the book. It's like it's nature, but you also see the leaves falling. So you have that's the beauty of nature, and then there's also the passing of time, which is showing in the falling of the leaves, which is the kind of feeling that we get after reading the poems in the book also. So it's a lovely cover. Now,
Yeah, it's I just wanted to share that this cover design. So it was done by this artist called Rabison, but the whole concept was actually done by my son,
oh
Jesse,
wow, okay,
all of 5 years old, and he's very artistic. And while I was writing, I was asking him, "What do you think?" Like, of course, it's very heavy for him to interpret it in his young brain, but I just told him, a bit about the first poem with "If a tree falls in the forest," and he said, "Okay, Mama, I'll just draw something." And he drew this, and he actually did it with crayon, and then this was his concept of the leaves falling out.
lovely.
So that
We should
really,
be doing it
uh,
right. Yeah,
I found it really, very deep coming from a little
a
kid.
5 year
So
old.
that
Yeah.
was, yeah, that was his contribution, and he keeps calling it his book.
How lovely. So, Smriti is here. She's saying Happy Diwali, and Afsana has appreciated the concept and the anecdote that you shared about your son being
Yeah,
the conceptualizer behind book cover. Super creativity. Smriti is also saying.
thank you.
Somebody else also commented. Afsana was the one. You are giving Diwali vibes. Thank you so much. That was the attempt. This is great parenting, Afsana is saying and appreciating you again.
Thank you.
Okay, now let me just move forward with reading out the poem. This one is titled The Last Goodbye, and I'm just going to read it out. It says, Tangled in emotions, making me want to cry. We stand together, saying our last goodbye. We make promises that we know will not last, unable to accept that life as we knew it has passed. In that moment, I feel like a voyager going to sea, leaving behind the land of familiarity, knowing fully well that I had to shed the past, the wind blowing my sails and my flag at full mast, the sea ahead and the land almost fading, attempts we make to keep the friendship from waning. Just like the voyager journeys to the new lands, meeting new people, I go along with life's demands. The life I left behind is now a memory in my head. The bittersweet moments in my psyche stay with me until I am dead. Onward the voyager must sail. It's a lovely, lovely poem. And as I was mentioning, it's one of my top favorites from the entire collection. And many people seem to have enjoyed it because, as I was mentioning earlier, when I read the poem in your book, it was highlighted by many people. The verses were highlighted by many people before me. So lovely.
Thank you.
I, I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions based on my reading, and because I want to understand how your mind works as a poet. Okay. So my first question to you is, take us through the process of how your writing journey started. You have already shared a bit of it, but we want to know more. So leading to the beginning and end of this book, and do share the challenges that you faced along the way and how you overcame them.
Okay. Um, So as I mentioned, right, that I have been writing for the longest time, but what I started off with writing was more of fiction, short stories, and all of those concepts would be there, on and off. It was not very frequent, and of course, with life, you don't tend to kind of get a lot of opportunities, and you tend to put your hobbies on the back burner. Last year somehow I decided, let's try seeing. There was a thought that came into my mind, like there was an instance, where something happened and it sort of sparked some creative thought. And while I was traveling, I just typed few lines on my phone. And I said, okay, wow, this sounds interesting, and maybe this I could develop into a poetry. And it went from there, writing one poem, then maybe writing few other thoughts that I had in mind. I shared it with my family, with my friends, and they were like, okay, wow, this sounds interesting and this looks good. So I said, okay, thanks to social media, I came across a couple of these anthology collections. When you can submit your poems to them, and they would kind of review and include you into the anthologies. So it happened with House of Publishing. They were doing this 120 poems, 120 best poems volume 5, and I contributed 12 poems. So that was exciting. And then while that happened, there was another anthology wherein I contributed one poem. And now that I contributed over there, I thought, why not do something for myself?
Yeah.
Right? Because uh, it clearly shows that it is an interest. I enjoy doing it, and why not try that? So I looked at all the various pros and cons, and of course, all of this was kind of very organic, searching on the on the net, trying to figure out how to kind of get this book together. And whilst I was doing that, I was putting together the poetry, because I realized, yeah, you need to at least have a minimum amount of certain number of poems before you get the book out. So it started off with this whole process like, okay, let's target 30 poems. So when do I want to do it? So it was almost towards the end of the year, and I said, okay, end of the year is a good target to put for myself. That means I have to take time out, cull out time from my work profile, from my parenting, from everything, and then sit together and write. And that journey was quite interesting because it was a completely blank canvas. I didn't have a concept or a thought how I wanted it to come together. And as the thoughts kept coming in, I kept writing it down, and that's when I sort of bundled it. And in terms of inspiration, I would say, I always had this thought that someday I'll go to some sort of hills or valleys and be able to quietly write my book or write. But unfortunately, that has not yet happened. I've gone, but I've never written. It's that kind. So I was like, okay, why not take time out in the schedule? Why not look at all those, fleeting moments and draw inspiration from that? So that became one of the threads. And my role, in my job is human resources. So that means I interact with a lot of people, get to understand angles from their point of view as a human being. What is the different, experiences in life? So all of that formed a lot of base to like material to put those thoughts together, and that's how I would say the whole book came together. And then, since I had the thought that let's do it by the end of the year, I submitted everything by the end of the year, and the book was released earlier in 2024.
Wonderful. What a journey that's been. And as an add-on question, I want to ask you, what has been the after effect of this? I mean, what has been so you have told us how it came about. Now I want to know a little bit of how your life has changed, or what are the kind of challenges that you are facing now after that you have published the book.
So the first was all about getting the book out. I would say that was the exciting part of it. Yes, then it was more of again friends and family reading the book, and of getting people to give you some of the reviews to get that attention and traction. So the journey from that part was also interesting. Personally, it left a hunger in me that I want to write more. And if I do this, then yes, there are a lot of other things I could also do. So then what? So I had to go back to, sort of thinking, what do I want to do? And I thought, okay, let's try sort of, since I started out the journey with short fiction, let's try writing some of
Hmm.
that and maybe giving it to some of these literary magazines where they choose, you get editors to give you
Yeah.
feedback. And that's been a very exciting journey this year because I've got published in few other magazines, poems as well as
Lovely.
fiction. And it's a great validation that okay, it's going in the right direction. When it doesn't get selected or when there's some kind of feedback or critique, that's also a big eye opener because okay, what maybe you had thought in mind, it's perceived differently by others.
Yes.
So it's all about kind of being vulnerable and putting yourself out there. So that's exciting. But yeah, about the book, I think yeah, I got to know a lot more about book marketing, which I had no idea about earlier. I think in that whole space of so many books that are out there, it's really tough
Hmm.
to get people to understand what the book is, and especially if it's a poetry book,
Yeah.
to get that traction. But yeah, I think that is something that you learn along the way.
Yeah, that's always there. So when I was reading out your poem, we were getting a lot of hearts and a few comments came in. Afsana said, "Wonderful, thank you." I think she enjoyed the poem that I read out. And then we had somebody coming in and saying Happy Diwali. So Happy Diwali to you also. I think that was Writer World 2020. Thank you for joining and Happy Diwali to you also. Okay, so that brings me to the second question, which is uh, writing poetry sometimes is very personal. I think most of the time it's very personal. And so, how does a writer or a poet ensure that the readers feel the relatability and not be dissatisfied with your expressions and words through the poems?
It's tough, I would say this one, because when we think about it or when you write, it's always from your own perspective,
Yeah.
and you hope that somebody gets that perspective. I think for me, I was pretty okay to leave it open to the interpretation also of others. How what they can get out of
Hmm.
it and what they make out of it. But I think, see, it's not. I believe it's not that the stories and the themes are not that
Hmm.
complex. I think there is
Hmm.
some relatability factor. There are some themes which are a little light-hearted. There are some themes which are a little intense. So I've tried to keep that balance so that it's not, otherwise it just becomes like a very depressing book to read. And
That's
that's
true.
maybe
Yeah.
not really, exciting for everyone.
Hmm.
So that's the reason I try to keep a little bit of balance about it. But the whole part was that's I think the name as well also came out through that life has its ups and downs. You have positives, negatives, and that's how it is holistic.
Yeah.
And the reason it is melancholy maybe. But yeah, I think the quest is on to try to see how people can relate to it, because when you write, yes, you just hope for it that
Yeah.
people do make sense out of it.
And there's always that risk is always going to be there that the perspective from which you have written might not be the perspective from which they understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for answering that. And yes, as poets, I think we have to take that risk.
Yes.
So at least we know we have done our best and we have tried to put the message forward. So wonderfully answered. So that brings me to the end of my questions that I had for you. You have also read my book, so now I leave the floor open to you.
Yes. So this was very interesting, Manali. I must say, I have the book here, Heartstrings and Harmonies, and I got it on Kindle, but then I thought it's always better to get the book in person in the
How
flesh.
lovely.
Um, and it was very interesting to read the book. I think for me, the way you sort of blended these two aspects of lyrics as well as coming up with a story and an interpretation behind it was very interesting for me. And what I liked is it's very different from my style. So it made me appreciate a different way of writing, a different way of interpreting the world, perceiving the world. And I like that you've put it into these three different buckets, like, love is romance, love is friendship, this kind of, and the stories that come with that. So the way you have, as I said, interpreted the lyrics, that has been makes me feel very warm. So when I ended the book, it was a very nice feeling, nice, warm, fuzzy feeling that I got. Yeah.
Lovely. So happy to hear that that you like the little experimentation that I have done with blending of music and the stories.
Yes, yes. Great. So I actually, really, as I was reading the book and each story, this question was on my mind that how do you develop these characters? I'm sure when we hear songs, everyone has their own experience interpreting that song or how it sort of means to them. But how have you fleshed out these characters? What was that thought process in your mind?
So it was a combination of many things. Firstly, all the stories, all the 29 stories in this book are based on writing prompts that I received from various communities that I'm a part of. So, with some of the stories, what happened was when I received the prompt, I knew story I wanted to tell. And based on that, the characters naturally came to me when the story panned out in my head or on paper when I thought about how I want the story to start and end. So that's how the story characters came to me. That if I want to write the story in this manner, these are the characters that I need. These many characters have to come in, and these many scenes and what happens in those scenes will come out. So that's one process of it that happened. With some stories, what happened is that when the prompt came to me, the song came to me first. So, for instance, there is one particular story where I have written the story inspired by the song Ye Sham Mastani. And when that writing prompt came to me, I knew the song first. The song came to me first. And then I had to think of what story would match with that song. And since the song is quite old, it's from the 70s. And a lot of people who are reading this book today would not know the song. So I wanted to use that particular song as a base to bring three generations together, and that's how the characters develop. I first thought of the grandfather and grandmother, then there is the daughter, and then there is the grandson, and how this one particular song connects the three generations, and how the connection between them becomes deeper, their bond becomes deeper because of that particular song. So that's how the characters developed. And then there is also the part where as a short story writer, you have to, at least I believe that, and this is my process where where I think of the scenes that I want to tell in the story, because the word count is limited, the number of pages are limited. You don't want to overwhelm the reader. You have to have a limited number of characters also, because if you put in too many characters in a short story, it loses its charm. So in most of the stories, I have tried to maintain the character number of characters up to 5 and 6 maximum. There is only one story where there are more than 5 6 characters, but that story also is happening in a family gathering, and it requires that many characters. Because I'm showing a scene at Christmas and they are all together, and so there's, I think, 8 characters in that one particular story. Otherwise, there's not more than 3 4 characters in any story. So I think it becomes easier that way. If you know uh, what you want to tell with your story, the fleshing out of characters becomes easier. If you know where you want to go with the story, how you want to start and how you want to end it, then I think the characterization and the number of characters becomes clear in your head, and that's how it came to me also. That's how the characters were developed.
Great, great. I know. Yeah. In fact, the story that you mentioned and the song that you mentioned, this intoxicating evening, it was one of my personal favorites. I must say.
Thank you.
In my book, I literally got all teary-eyed reading it because I don't know. It was the song. I like the song, and as well when the way the whole concept came together and that whole realization, the nostalgia, it was really lovely. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Uh, so having said that, the way you develop those characters and your thought process, and as we were talking about, if when we write, we do not know how people interpret with. I want to ask you, what is your expectation after having read this book? What is the message that you want to leave your readers with?
I think overall just positivity and finding that one ray of hope in your life, whether it's a person or a situation or a song, it doesn't matter. That one ray of hope, if you have in your life. For instance, in fact, in one story, I have put it out as clearly as possible, where three women are, they are living in very impoverished conditions, and there's one, they are each other's strength, and they sing this particular song to each other to bring strength to themselves and to the family that they are a part of. And that particular song, I'm forgetting the song also, I think it's from the movie City Lights. And where there's been one particular, there's a small girl, and she's the strongest out of all the three, and
Okay.
then she's, yeah,
Yeah.
she's losing hope, and the mother and the grandmother then try to they sing the same song, and they uplift her. So that's one particular theme that I have tried to maintain throughout the story, whether it's friendship, whether it's romance, or whether it's about being with a family. And there's one particular section where I'm also talking about coping with grief and losing loved ones. Even in that, I have tried to maintain that life goes on. You have to find the strength from the little things that that continue to be around you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one called You're the Reason I Smile and Hum.
Yeah, हाँ मुस्कुराने की वजह तुम हो, right? That was the song.
Yeah. Okay. So, as I said, the for me, this thing, what you had put about is about coping with grief, about how love is life and beyond. That touched me the most, I would say, because yes, it's also sort of at the end you have relationships with all sort of, and you've kind of spoken about romantic relationships, even about friendships, even about different kinds of relationships between parents, siblings. But yeah, once you lose a loved one, understanding their point of view, keeping that legacy alive, for me was very interesting. And yes, this intoxicating evening was one of the favorites, and the second one was Come Back Home. And I really felt that moment when you spoke about, you've written about the blasts that have happened in Mumbai. It's so relatable. Of course, I have witnessed it personally. And sometimes you just tell somebody something, and that you never know that happens to be the last words you ever spoke to them. So that's the reason I really like them. And I wanted to actually read a part of this intoxicating evening, Ye Sham Mastani,
Yes,
which
please.
is actually the excerpt that, when Prerna and Sarthak, the mother and son, they are cleaning up the attic, and they hear the voice of of grandfather Nanaji on the tape. So I'm just going to read what he has said. Uh, so the song goes on. My dear Sarika, I have lost count of the number of times I have listened to this song. But I do remember that not a single time have I not thought of the way your eyes locked with mine, and the way you blushed when I lip synced the lyrics, looking your way on a rainy evening. Prerna let out a gasp. Disbelief writ across her face. Isn't that Nanaji? Sarthak asked, shocked. She nodded, unable to speak as the tape went on. Remember that evening, Saru? If you don't, I always will. I walked into your father's electronics store. I was merely seeking refuge from the torrential rain. Your melodious voice singing out this song mesmerized me as if seeking me out amidst the thunder and lightning. I knew I was a goner when my eyes fell on you. You were lost in your own world, cleaning the shelves as the boombox played out Kishore Kumar's voice. There was a chuckle and a light cough on the tape again. Prerna sniffled, and Sarthak rushed forth to give his mother a side hug. The mother and son listened on, fascinated to know what happened next. Your father then proudly showed off the boombox to me, trying to convince me to buy it. He said something about it being just delivered fresh from Holland. I gave in, only to get a few more minutes to gaze at you. All the while, my eyes followed your movements as you went about humming the song. You didn't acknowledge my presence even once until I myself started humming the lyrics. There were a few seconds of static on the tape again. A faint voice, as if from far away, could be heard saying, Kartik ji, come here quickly, please. Sarthak gripped Prerna's hand. His own eyes were a bit moist now. There's no need for either to identify out loud who the other voice belonged to. A cough, a light chuckle, and the tape went on. I love it that you need me for such menial tasks. I love it that life is simple yet so beautiful with you. There was a shuffle, as if while recording, Karthik was wiping away a tear or two of his own. I'm preparing this tape for our special day. I can't believe we are completing 50 years of togetherness. This will be my gift to you. Hope you like it, Saru. Happy anniversary and thank you for choosing me. And then it's the song.
Lovely. So yeah, so that's one song that that's connecting the three generations.
Yes. And it is, the song is so beautiful, firstly. And then when you have this story, I mean, it was really something, maybe also, maybe I'm in that sort of phase right now. So that's, that is the reason it, it is more closer to home. Yeah.
Oh, that makes me feel very happy that you are resonating with the story on a personal level. Okay, so now that we are through with the reading and with our long form questions for each other, we come to my favorite part of the episode, which is the rapid fire round.
Okay.
So, how we'll do it is we'll do back and forth. I will ask one question and then you ask. Okay.
So,
Uh, so, my first question to you is name five poetry titles from the book without looking at the index.
okay. The first one is If a Tree Falls in the Forest. There's War. There's Zombies. There is Tragic Romantic. There is Don't Fly Too Close to the Sun. Yeah.
Lovely. That's great. You did very well. Okay, your turn.
Here goes to you. Name one character in your book who deeply resonates with you of the 29.
That, yeah, that has to be Manav from the story Mayank and Manav, where the two brothers are there, and I have talked about how the elder one is an overachiever and the younger one is a little, you know,
Okay.
I am the younger sibling.
Okay. Okay. So there was definitely some personal inspiration
Yes, yes,
behind it.
yes, definitely.
Okay.
So yeah, that's one character out of all the 29 stories. I think that one I could relate to the most.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Okay, my next question to you is do you recall a poetry or two which was really difficult to write and why?
I think the one which you read, The Last Goodbye, that was really difficult because it came from a place that was very personal. I mean, I've been into situations where, the friendship may have ended or a relationship may have ended, or you've had to say goodbye to a person because maybe they've moved overseas, moved cities, or something of that sort. And a phase of your life changes, that era, as you knew it, it ends.
Yeah.
What happens next is completely different. So that ending, when you have to go through it's really difficult, and really, that sometimes, you're into that inertia where you don't know how to take
Mhm.
that next step, or you don't know what's coming next, that,
Mhm.
completely complete oblivion of, not knowing what comes next. So that was
Mhm.
very difficult to write because the emotions were there in me, but how do I put it in the form of a poem? How do I relate it? So I came up with this concept of, like a voyager who is, going out there to sea, and that's how I wrote it. But believe me, I was almost crying every time I was writing it because it was so personal.
How, oh, wow. So that's deeply personal and also something that moved you so much.
Yeah, yeah.
That's, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
your turn.
So, um, what is your personal favorite story from the 29? You told us about the characters, but which is your favorite story?
Uh, I it's difficult to pick a favorite story, but I would say the one that you read out, this intoxicating evening, is really special because of two reasons. Because that's how the journey of this book started, and also because that is indeed one of my all-time favorite songs. from the 70s at least. So that's one song that I really like. And it was from that story and from that prompt that the idea for heartstrings and harmonies was sown in me, and that's how the book started. It was the inception point for this book.
Okay, okay, great.
Okay, so my next question to you is, any poetry recommendations for us? Give us at least two.
Okay. Um, of course, I've shared about the last goodbye, but if I would say anything else, the other one would be do not fly too close to the sun. So I'm a big fan of Greek mythology, and I've been reading it from childhood. And few of the stories are very deeply ingrained in my brain. Like you can wake me up at any time, I can narrate the whole story.
Hmm.
I thought, why not experiment with the retelling of that tale?
Hmm.
I knew it was something which maybe people would have heard it, but I wanted to give a different perspective to it. And as I said, I like to blend my personal experiences also into it. So sometimes as an HR professional, when you see people going through different aspects of life, you see how their struggles are, you see how people are trying to, kind of uh, get that vetted position role. So it's a lot of human nature that you see in it, and then how people react. And that's what I wanted to sort of bring about, as a tale in Do Not Fly Too Close to the Sun. It's about Icarus and Daedalus. That's the tale. The other one is actually the final poem in this entire book, which is Melancholy Maybe,
Hmm.
because it's a summary of everything, of all the
Hmm.
experiences that are there. As I said, there are some highs, some lows, and I think that is kind of, gives the entire sort of message of what I wanted to put through in the anthology. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Thank you for answering that. Okay, your turn.
Okay. So I think you sort of said that, but maybe if you could share what has been your main inspiration. I mean, I know that, okay, the song came through, but what gave you that trigger factor that, okay, I should put this in this form, in this experimental form?
So, two to three factors contributed to the ideation behind this particular book and the stories that are in it. One was that I heard somewhere or somebody, I don't know if I heard it in an interview or somebody I know personally said something like it, but I heard the statement and I was like, no. So the statement was that you cannot combine two forms of art and make a good final product. And I was like, no, that's not possible. Our films are the biggest example where we have song and dance, and there's a story also going on. So I wanted to experiment it myself and try and prove that no, it's possible and it can be done well. So that's how I combined music and writing into my book, and here it is. And the way that it has been received so far, I am believing that I have also done a good job of it, and I have proved that no, two forms of art
Yes,
can be
yes,
combined to put together.
yes, I agree.
And the second factor itself was that I'm a music lover. There's hardly, anything that I do during the day when the music is not on. When I'm working out, when I'm cooking, or, when I'm doing any other hobby like reading or coloring, music is always on in the background. It's only when I need complete zen, complete silence when I'm writing. That's the only time that the music is off. So
Okay,
I have always been a kind of person like that. So I wanted to use that bit of my personality and my love for music into another form of my something that I enjoy doing, which is writing. So that's how the combination happened.
great. At work. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, my next question to you is, the one thing you feel writers and authors can only learn once they are a part of the writing community.
Okay, I think I would say accepting feedback. You know,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
otherwise, you are always, you know, at some point of time, you either say, okay, I choose not to, or it doesn't make sense. But when people are validating your work,
Hmm.
or they are not not validating, maybe it didn't resonate with him. And I'm sure that there could be times like that. Or maybe you have to learn about, as I said, marketing it more better. So there's always a lot of learning that comes out of it. I think that feedback is important because at least this has been my experience. In my head, it's amazing, it's great, everything is like all things. But when I tell it to somebody else, I don't know how they are receiving it and how they are interpreting. And I think that's a beautiful part of the journey. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I think
how
yeah.
it,
You grow also, na. You realize that people outside of circle how they are perceiving
exactly.
your writing.
Ex-
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's like that journey of the frog that comes out of the well.
exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, you think yes, everything is great and everything is
Yeah,
wonderful.
that's true. And yeah, that learning does come once you are part of the community. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, your turn.
Okay. So, what does the title mean? What's the yeah? I know it's heartstrings and harmonies, but what made you think of these two words coming together? What was the story behind it?
So uh, again, a combination of factors, but the one thing that really inspired me to go with this title and the idea that came to my mind was that uh, the strings of the guitar that they touch your heart whenever somebody is playing live music or even in a recorded song or musical compilation, the strings of a guitar are always something that really make you feel like wow, jannat.
Mhm.
So that's the one thing that I wanted to, convey through my stories. And then harmonies, of course, through the music that is a part of the story. So both are like, dil ko chhu lene wali baatein, aisa. So heartstrings and harmonies, because heartstrings, your heartstrings are getting touched because of the harmonies that are there in the story. So that's how.
Okay, lovely.
Okay, so my last question to you is one habit you feel has helped you as a writer and poet.
Um, as a person, as a person generally in life, I'm somebody who doesn't give up easily. I'm quite persevere, and that's a quality I personally love about myself. That I think that's what makes me me. And when this happened, there are so many things which will, like you can put it off, and nobody gave me a timeline or a deadline, right, to write it or to put it out there. But it was my own personal target, and because of that discipline, and yeah, I think because of that discipline, that perseverance, it was something that I said, okay, this is what I've put in for myself, and let's see how it goes. So yeah, I think that's what helped me to get there. And yeah, now that's what I do, as as I said, consciously culling out time from the week to keep writing, to keep honing the skill.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
a great quality to have. Perseverance is definitely required if you want to, achieve a goal that you have in mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings me to the end of my questions. I think you have one more question for me.
I have one last question. When is your next book coming up?
Sometime before this year ends, definitely.
Oh,
And it will be a poetry book.
okay, lovely.
So yeah, that's it. So in continuation to the question that you have asked, why poetry? Because over the past few years, I have had this self-made goal where I put out at least 2 books in a year, and since fiction has already happened for 2024 and poetry is still left, that's what will be coming out by the end of 2024. Poetry is not done for 24 yet, so
Okay.
that's what it will
So
be.
we still we are on 1st of November, so that's
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah.
It's going to be very nice. Yeah.
Exactly. We are right at the, towards the end of the year. So it's a good time to uh, tell people what to expect next.
One,
Okay. So that brings us to the end of today's episode. And I'm so, so happy that it finally happened, Touchwood.
yes, same here. I mean, I know I was not the easiest to accommodate with, but
That's all
thank you
right.
for
I
having
understand.
your patience, and very happy to have this conversation with you, Manal.
Same here. And I always ask this question because I want my guests to come back on the show. So this is your question before we part. When can I expect you on the show next? What are you doing for your next book?
I am still thinking. out there what I want to do, how I want to do it. I'm still right now just going with the flow. Hopefully soon. I know there's something inside me, but it just has to take form.
Yeah, no rushing, but I would love for you to bring it out as soon as possible so that I can have you as a guest again.
Yes, I will definitely would like to, come again and chat with you about the next work. Yes.
It's been a great experience having you, and I look forward to hosting you again.
Thank you, Monali. The pleasure is
Have
all
a
mine.
great weekend, and once again, happy Diwali.
Happy
Bye.
Diwali. Bye.